this lovely book about the rise and fall of ancient Rome. So on the left hand side here we have an image of a general of the 3rd century AD commanding his troops. Here he is. transition from ruthless battle leader to revered father of his country was one of the greatest achievements of Octavian, who became Augustus, first and greatest Roman emperor. In 44 BC, the 18-year-old heir and adopted son of Julius Caesar, just assassinated, had only the lustre of Caesar's name as backing. Cicero, the leading senator, gave him an army command against Mark Antony, but Octavian soon changed sides to form the second triumvirate, with Antony gaining mastery of the western part of the empire, and after defeating Antony at Actium in 31 BC, rulership of the whole Roman world, just as Julius Caesar had. In January 27 BC, Octavian resigned all his powers to receive them back as prearranged from a grateful senate, along with the title Augustus, which means literally revered. We call him the first Roman emperor, but to his contemporaries he took pains to seem no more than Princeps, first citizen of the Republic. He disguised his power so carefully that his claim to have restored the Republic seemed almost credible. Typical of his apparent modesty was his home, an average-sized house formerly belonging to the orator Hortensius. It was located on the Palatine Hill, the traditional aristocratic area. His 45-year reign laid the foundations of a regime that lasted almost 250 years. This revolution, disguised as a conservative restoration, was typically Roman. Octavian was very unlike his great-uncle Caesar. Aware that republican feeling was strong and wanting senatorial support, Octavian cultivated an image of traditional Roman virtus, which roughly translates as courage, virtue, and probity. He needed the senators and equestrians' help to run the empire. He had no proper civil service, merely a few secretaries. The 27 BC settlement gave him proconsular power in provinces with large armies, such as Gaul or France, and Syria, run by legates appointed by him. Senators governed peaceful, unarmed provinces like Greece. The administration was thus depoliticized, but Augustus retained control of the army and the title Imperator, effectively commander-in-chief, from which comes the word emperor. His own military reputation was mixed. He relied heavily on capable generals such as Agrippa, but he retained the crucial loyalty of the armies. They swore loyalty to him, not the Senate, and remained remarkably loyal to his successors. At first, Augustus was consul almost every year until illness in 23 BC made him rethink his position. From then on, he had perpetual tribunician power, which allowed him to convene the assembly and senate and propose or veto laws. In 19 BC, he gained imperium maius, or supreme power, recognised celibacy and childless marriages and gave tax breaks to families with 3 or more children. He banished even his own daughter, Julia, for adultery, and the poet Ovid for general licentiousness. He also revived the sacred secular games and other old religious festivals. The man behind the image. Augustus was slim, rather short, but well proportioned, unusually handsome, and exceedingly graceful, according to Suetonius, with curly golden hair. Although his health was poor, he nevertheless lived to the age of 77. Ruthless in his youth, he later mellowed. He was a modest gambler and a sociable family man, enjoying dinner with friends. Surviving letters to Gaius, his grandson, calling him my dearest little donkey, reveal paternal affection. His last years were unhappy, however. Not only did family problems distress him, but the Varus disaster in Germany in AD 9, in which 3 legions were destroyed, shook him badly. He advised Tiberius, whom he had adopted reluctantly in AD 4, to expand the empire no further. After his death in AD 14, almost certainly from natural causes, he was given a splendid funeral and declared a god by the Senate. He became the paradigm against which all later emperors would be measured. So here he is. This is a sculpture. He's shown as the triumphant Roman imperator or commander-in-chief. Family problems. As emperor, Augustus inevitably involved his family in dynastic politics. In 36 BC, he married Livia Drusilla, who ignored his frequent infidelities and acted as a moderating influence on him. He had only one child, Julia, by his first marriage. Keen to pass on power to a direct descendant, he married Julia to his nephew, Marcellus. When Marcellus died in 23 BC, Julia, still only 16, was made to marry Agrippa, 24 years her senior. Their 5 children included 2 sons, Gaius and Lucius, whom Augustus adopted as his sons. But when Agrippa died in 12 BC, Augustus turned to Tiberius, his gloomy stepson, who was forced to divorce his wife, Vipsania, whom he loved, and marry Julia, whom he loathed, to be a guardian to the young princes. Disgusted, Tiberius withdrew from public life, and Julia began a series of affairs which led to her exile. The premature deaths of the 2 young princes, Lucius in AD 2 and Gaius in AD 4, forced Augustus to recall Tiberius to favour. The resulting Julio-Claudian dynasty lasted until AD 68. Organisers of empire. Although the lives and reigns of some assassination of Caligula, however, Claudius was the only Julio-Claudian available as next emperor. Claudius was intelligent if bookish. He had written histories of the Carthaginians and Etruscans which are now lost, and initially at least he had good intentions. He abolished treason trials and set about restoring public order, which had been shaken by Caligula's excesses, trying to work with rather than against the Senate. However, he had no military experience, a big disadvantage for a ruler whose power ultimately depended on the army, although his brother, the general Germanicus, was fondly remembered by soldiers. One of his first acts was to order the invasion of Britain, which Julius Caesar had attempted, and of which both Augustus and Caligula had talked. This proved remarkably successful. Part of southern Britain was overrun in AD 43, and Claudius hastened north to celebrate its conquest. Conquests of Mauritania, North Algeria, Morocco, and Thrace in the Balkans made him the most expansionist emperor since Augustus, and popular with the army and the people. To please the volatile populace further, Claudius built an entirely new harbour near Ostia, with breakwaters and a lighthouse, greatly facilitating Rome's troubled grain supply. He also completed 2 aqueducts that had been started by Caligula. What displeased many in the Senate was his liberal policy of making Gauls, Roman citizens from Gaul, sometimes of Gallic ancestry, but always Romanized, senators, and extending Roman citizenship widely. Claudius himself was born in Lyon. The Senate also criticized his reliance on Greek-speaking freedmen. Pallas looked after finance, Narcissus foreign affairs, and Callistus the law. At first, Claudius kept his secretaries under control as they built up departments that foreshadowed the bureaucracy of the 2nd century AD. His love life was unhappy, however, Spain, in AD 53, Marcus Ulpianus Trajanus was the first non-Italian emperor. Although his family were Romans of senatorial rank, he was adopted as the son and heir of the emperor Nerva in AD 97. As the elderly senator was so unpopular with the army, Trajan already had a distinguished military and civil record and proved an inspired choice. Affable and handsome, he was equally at ease with the Senate, people and army, but it was military matters that occupied him first. And here he is, Trajan. And this is Trajan's column in Rome, which celebrates and records his Dacian victories. The Great Builder. Trajan was also a great peacetime ruler. He created special funds for helping poor children and built on a massive scale. Okay, let's go to Marcus Aurelius, AD 161 to 80. Brought up by Stoic philosophers, high-minded, ascetic and self-sacrificing, Marcus Aurelius seemed destined to become Rome's true philosopher king, but tragically his reign was filled with almost continuous warfare, and he spent much of it fighting. Born in Spain in AD 121 to an aristocratic Roman family, Marcus was chosen as Hadrian's sole heir when he was only 6. Antoninus Pius, the next elderly emperor, adopted him in AD 138. Marcus became consul at the age of 18 and then Caesar, junior emperor. Lucius Verus, 9 years younger, was his adopted brother. When he became emperor in AD 161, Marcus persuaded the Senate to make Verus co-Augustus alongside him. Almost immediately, Parthia invaded Armenia. Lucius Verus went east, and the Parthians were repelled, mostly by the governor of Syria, Avidius Cassius. Verus, preferring the flesh pots of Antioch, and Ctesiphon and Seleucia on the Tigris, were sacked in AD 165. The total destruction of the latter, a Hellenistic city